Hi, I'm Charlie Louise and welcome to my channel, Eat Love Flow. Today I want to talk to you about overnight oats. They're one of my favourite staples for breakfast, but how do we make sure we avoid that crash after eating them, or even more importantly, that 3 p.m. crash in the afternoon, which, believe it or not, could be coming from your breakfast. So overnight oats in their simplest form are a carbohydrate. All this means is that your blood sugar is going up and then it's going to come down and it's going to crash at some point if you don't add in any other macros to stabilise your blood sugar. So today I want to talk to you about how I add more protein into my overnight oats as a breakfast, as a mummy when I haven't got loads of time, and one of the options that I use to do this. Now you might be wondering why it's so important to increase protein within the overnight oats. If we're just eating carbs and a hefty dose of them at the front end of our day, as soon as we've woken up, when we're already experiencing a spike in our cortisol and our adrenaline, then all we're doing is sending our blood sugar sky high, and it will come crashing down. If we don't have a decent amount of fats and proteins, then we have nothing to stabilise that increase of blood sugar and the crash. So overnight oats on their own aren't necessarily going to give me the amount of protein that I would like with my breakfast. So whilst they contain some, it's not enough for me personally to help keep my blood sugar stable throughout the whole day and to stop that 3 p.m. slump when I'm working, I'm tired already, I've had a decent lunch, but maybe that breakfast has just started me off on that roller coaster of blood sugar spikes throughout my day, and I've just started my day on the wrong foot because of that, and it's very, very difficult for me to then get that blood sugar back into balance. So if I start right, I feel energized throughout my whole day. So today I'm going to discuss with you the humble egg and a broth. So it's nothing complicated. So this is perfect for when you're in a rush, if you're a busy parent, if you're busy working. I really do like to try and help busy people because I am one of them. I have a full-time job. I have my yoga and my nutrition in addition to that full-time job. And also I have a very, very energetic 6-year-old. So life can just get very, very busy. So I try to make it as easy as I can for myself to have a really nutritious breakfast to start my day. So initially when I tried to add more protein into my overnight oats, things came up like protein powders. I can't have those because I suffer a lot with vestibular migraines and normal migraine headaches as well. So I don't like to have anything that's processed in any way if I can avoid it. And protein powders are known for some people to trigger migraines. For me, they definitely do. So I just avoid those. Of course, you can add a protein powder to your breakfast if you want one, but if you can't have them or you'd rather not eat them as well, then let me just explain to you how you can get that protein here alongside the overnight oats without changing a breakfast that you maybe really love. So in my overnight oats, just to start with, I have oats. I use oat milk. I already add in some seeds and I seed cycle throughout the month, but just for an example with the one I'm showing you today, I've got pumpkin seeds in there and sunflower seeds. And then I'll also add in some blueberries because that's just the fruit that I like. But again, you could cycle through different fruits depending on what you prefer. I always get frozen fruit because it just works out a bit cheaper to add into the overnight oats. So that's ultimately my oats. Now if you put those into MyFitnessPal or another app that records macros, so proteins, fats and carbohydrates, you would see a mix across all of them there because it does contain all of those, but ultimately the highest number there would be carbohydrates. So I would still be spiking my blood sugar and it wouldn't be very balanced. So I don't really want to change my overnights anymore because I really like them just as they are. So rather than change them, I've found ways to introduce things alongside my overnight oats that give me the protein that I want, whilst also helping me to balance that blood sugar. So you could also use this if you have a different breakfast maybe and it's not overnight oats, maybe you have something else and you're just looking to increase that protein dose that you're having. Even if you don't want to count your calories and use FitnessPal, it's really actually useful just to look at the macronutrients that are in your food. And once you have an understanding of what foods contain what macronutrients, you can actually just eat in a more mindful way that allows you to help your body and give your body the energy that it might need, especially as a parent. So as I said, I add eggs and broth So with my eggs, I sometimes do a fried egg if I fancy it with some avocado oil, but most of the time I just do a bog standard scrambled egg with a bit of salt because I don't have a lot of processed food, so I like to get salt back into my diet as well. I find that really beneficial for my migraines. So eggs are a really great source of protein and fat, so I just have 2 of them. On some of the days that I have my overnight oats, and that's a way of me adding some more protein and some more fat, which also helps to balance my blood sugar into my breakfast. Now, because I look for a certain number with my protein requirements, and I'm not going to mention that here because everyone's number that they might want to be reaching is different, but I do try to eat a certain gram of protein with each meal of my day, and I do that just because that works for me and my blood sugar, but I don't want to be prescriptive on here really, because it's just a case, I think, of eating a more rounded diet and increasing that protein where you can, because it will just make you feel better. And I think sometimes when we put numbers on things, we see them as a target that we have to achieve rather than actually let's just try and eat a more balanced meal here. So in addition to the eggs, I also add a bone broth. Now the one that I'm currently using is the Freja one. So I usually have the egg and bone broth breakfast once or twice a week, and I'll explain in some other upcoming videos what other breakfasts I do to add protein. So the Freja bone broths you can buy in bulk, and you can get a discount on those as well if you do so, rather than buying individually, and they're really great. So I have one of the 500ml cartons with that breakfast of my 2 eggs, my overnight oats, and a 500ml carton of bone broth. I also eat them in a particular order, so I normally have the eggs first, then I'll have my bone broth afterwards, and then I usually leave it about 5 or 10 minutes just to let that start settling and digesting in my stomach before I then eat my overnight oats. Now this actually gives me something very quick to do if I've dropped my daughter at school and I want to come home and quickly eat those before I start work. I can have the eggs cooked very quickly. The bone broth you heat up in the microwave. In mine it takes 50 seconds, so it's nothing at all. And then I can drink that, and my breakfast I just spoon out, and I also add some chia seeds into my breakfast as well, which just helps again to add a bit more protein. So overall, that's how I add protein to what is otherwise a carbohydrate meal, and actually that gives me a much more protein heavy breakfast, and the carbs actually take a back seat. So that is one way that you can add protein to your overnight oats. One thing that I really want to say here just to end this video is that really the premise of this is that whatever your breakfast is and whatever it is that you love already, for me it was overnight oats and it's easy. You don't always have to change your entire breakfast. So you see a lot of this protein maxing is all over the place at the moment. And yes, protein is obviously very good for us. It helps to stabilise our energy levels. It helps in so many ways. However, what some of us don't want to be doing is changing our entire breakfasts and eating freshly cooked meat every morning, just with protein sources, and cooking an entire cooked breakfast. It doesn't work for everybody. So I think it's really important ignoring my overnight oats suggestion and actually taking whatever breakfast it is you love, if you don't want to change everything, and just looking at what you could maybe either add into that breakfast or stack on top of that breakfast to give you those protein requirements for the day and to really help those energy levels. My focus is very much on well-being for real life, and I think we all have so much on anyway that I don't want to overwhelm and add more onto your plate, quite literally. What I want to do is give you some tools and suggestions that help you add protein into your breakfast, into your meals, without making it overwhelming, so that you can find some easy ways to help yourself throughout the day. And that is exactly how I approach nutrition myself. I don't try to make big changes in one go. They're not sustainable. Not many people can stick to them. I look to make really small sustainable changes over time across my diet, small tweaks that I can really build into my routine. And of course, I love a carbohydrate as well as the next person. I just try to eat them mindfully, and I try to stop my blood sugar spikes where I can. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope this has given you some fresh ideas for your breakfasts.